Welcome back to our series on creating a custom budget app in Salesforce. In the last video, we created our initial custom object schema and some fields for those objects. In this video, we're going to be creating the page layouts, the custom tabs, and the Lightning app for our budget app. Where we last left off, we were in the schema builder. And one thing about the schema builder is it does allow you to navigate very quickly to the page layout editors. So I'm going to go ahead and open each one, and we're going to edit the page layouts as we go. So if you click the little cogwheel on each of the objects, you can click View Page Layouts, and it should open in a new tab to get you right to the page layout menu. Click on the page layout you want to edit. In this case, we only have one. And now we're just going to take these fields that we have available and put them in the correct places. Now, I do want to say this is entirely up to you where you put the fields. It doesn't really matter too much for the overall experience of the app, but this is how I decided to do it. So if you want your app to look like mine, feel free to follow along. So first field I have is the expense date. I want to put that up here in the top right. Put amount right below that, and then the description of that expense below that. I also have the category I want to be able to see, and I'll put that right below the category month. Now you'll notice that this doesn't have an owner field because this is part of a master detail relationship. We'll have this part of any child objects that have a master detail relationship on them. And because this particular custom object in our schema doesn't have any related children, we're not going to have any related lists here, so we can go ahead and hit save. All right, I'll close this tab and we'll go to our next object, category month. Open up the page layout. We'll see we already have some of our fields here. So I want to pull in the budgeted amount. Also want to pull in the category, put it right below the category month name. And I'll take that spent amount, put it right under budgeted amount. And I'm going to put the first day of month below that. And then hit save. And as we go through each of these custom objects, I'm going to notice there's a few things that I missed in the last video we're going to go ahead and create. So for category month in particular, we do want to know how much budget we actually have remaining for that category month. To do that, we're going to create a new field under Fields and Relationships, click New, go to Formula. We're going to call this field Budget Remaining. And this is going to return a currency with 2 decimal places. And this is similar to the one that we created on the budget object in the last video. It's going to basically just take the budgeted amount and subtract the spent amount. You can check syntax, make sure there's nothing wrong with that. There isn't. So we'll go ahead and click Next. Next. And save. Then we'll go back to that page layout for the category month. We'll take that budget remaining field and put it right below the spent amount field. That way we can see the budgeted amount, the spent amount. We don't have to do the math in our head. We can see immediately what that budget is we have remaining for that particular month on that category. And before we leave off this page layout, we're going to want to add the related list for our expenses. So we're going to click on the related lists area up in the top section, and then drag that related list down into the related list section. We're going to edit the properties on this guy, and we're going to pull in the fields that mean something to us. So we're going to pull in that description that I created. We're going to pull in amount. We're also going to pull in the expense date. And it might be good for us to also sort these by expense date. So I'm going to sort by expense date, and that's going to be descending so that I get the most recent expenses at the top. All right, now we'll hit save. Now we can close this tab. Let's go into our budget month record. So I'll open up the page layout for that. We've got some fields for this object. We want to go ahead and pull in the total monthly budget right below the budget name. The first day of month, put that over here on the right. One thing with owner is I don't necessarily care who the owner is for my app. Feel free to keep the owner field there if you want to. Maybe you have different budgets and you have different owners of those records. You can definitely leave those on, but for me, my wife and I just share the same budget, so it doesn't really matter who owns it. And I'll put the total budgeted below that and the total spent below that. Again, every single time I find a field that I missed creating, I'll go ahead and create it. So I'll do a save on this guy, and we'll create that same formula field that we forgot to do last time, which is budget remaining. It's going to be a currency type, 2 decimal places, next. And pretty much the same as that last formula we created. So it's going to be the total budgeted minus total spent. Check our syntax, hit next, next, and save. Now we'll go back to that page layout, and you see budgeted remaining appears right below the total monthly budget, which should be fine. And I'm going to make a last minute change here. I'm going to put the budgeted remaining under there, and I'm going to put the first day of month below the total monthly budget. So it evens it out a little bit, and it puts the budget remaining over where my other calculated values are from the roll-up summaries. We're also going to pull in our related list, which for us is only the category months. Let's go ahead and change a few things here. We'll put in the budgeted amount. We'll put in the spent amount. We can put in that budget remaining as well. And save. Now let's take a look at our category layout. All right, and for this particular object, we don't have that many fields, but we do have quite a few related lists. So first, we'll pull over the default budget, and we'll leave everything on the fields as is. Go to the related lists, and here we have the category months related list we want to pull in. And for this guy, I'll pull in the budgeted amount, the spent amount, the budgeted remaining, and the first day of month. And for this one too, I also want to sort it by the first day of month, descending. Now the next related list we want to pull in are the expenses. And we want to take the description, the amount, the category month, and the expense date. We'll sort those by expense date, descending. The next related list is going to be our known expenses. This is from the expense template object. And for these, we're just going to put the amount and the day of month. All right, so now our category layout looks good. Let's go ahead and hit save. And next I'm going to do the budget object. This one should be fairly basic. We're going to just pull in the budget available, the total available, I'm going to remove the owner, and the total budgeted. For related list, we do have categories. And for categories, I don't really care too much about the fields for this. I'm just going to put the default budget for that particular category. That's actually the only field we created for it. All right, now we can hit save. And then our last custom object we need to create our page layout for is expense template. And for this, we want to put our category lookup. We want to put our day of month, take that owner out. And then I'm going to put the amount right above day of month. And if you remember this formula we created, we're not necessarily going to use it in the UI, we're just going to use it in automation. So we'll just leave it out of the layout. And this one doesn't have any related list to it, so we'll hit save. All right, so there are our page layouts. The next thing we're going to do is go into the Home tab, and we're going to create our custom object tabs. So if you type tab here, click tabs. So now we should see the custom object tabs section. If we click the new button, we can see that the objects we can choose from are all of the custom objects we've created. So first we're going to do our budget object, and these tab styles are entirely up to you. It's a preference thing. If you want your app to look like mine, feel free to use what I did, but again, this doesn't affect the overall functionality of how the app works. So for the budget, I decided to use a bank. One thing you want to do is ensure that this is set to default on for all profiles. That way it makes it a lot easier for users to use those custom object tabs when you create your custom Lightning app. And we'll do that here shortly. We don't necessarily want to include any of our custom object tabs in the other apps since we're going to create a custom Lightning app for this. So you can just uncheck include tab for all of the other apps and hit save. And we're pretty much going to rinse and repeat here. So we're going to do this for the budget month object. And that one I chose to use a moon. Do category. And for category, I decided to use a chalkboard. For category months, I decided to use an alarm clock. For expenses, that one I chose a big stack of cash because that's what we make as Salesforce professionals, big stacks of cash. And for our last custom object expense template, for this, I decided to use a map. So now that we have our tabs created, we're going to go over into the App Manager. And this is where we create our Lightning app. So we're going to click New Lightning App up at the top right. We're going to call this Budget App. You can enter a description there if you want to. I'm going to leave mine blank because it's pretty self-explanatory what it is. Feel free to add an image if you want. I have an image that I wanted to use. It's just a little piggy bank image. However, I think this is copyrighted, so don't use this image in particular unless, like me, you're just wanting to use your app for personal use. Now this next part, you're going to want to choose your navigation style. I prefer to use console navigation, and for now I'm going to leave my app on the desktop and phone supported form factors because I do want to end up using it on the phone eventually, but we'll get to creating mobile specific layouts, page layouts, and lightning pages in a later video. And I'm just going to keep it on full set of setup options. We don't have any utility items to add yet because we haven't added the add expense automation, which we'll create in a later video. So for this, I'm just going to leave it with no utilities and click Next. Now here's where we add our various tabs to the app. So I'm just going to add in all of the custom object tabs that we created just a minute ago. So I have budgets, budget months, and I have categories, category months, and then expenses and expense templates. Now I'm going to reorder this just a little bit. I'm going to put categories towards the top, expenses as well. I'm going to put my budget months, category months, and expense templates right below it. Click Next. This is entirely up to you as well, how you want your related objects to open, whether you want them to open as workspace tabs or subtabs of particular tabs. I'm going to leave all of this as is and click Next. And then for profiles, depending on who you're going to have using this app, if you, for instance, have a spouse who is also a Salesforce professional, you may not necessarily want to give them a sysadmin profile. However, if you trust them enough to not make any changes to your app, then you can definitely just use the system administrator profile. For me, I'm going to use just the system administrator profile because I share this app with my wife, who is not a Salesforce professional. So I trust her not to make any changes just due to the fact that she doesn't know how. So up to you whether you want to allow this for all profiles or just a few profiles, create your own custom profile and assign it. But for me, I'm just going to use the system administrator profile for the permissions to this app. And we'll click Save and Finish. And we have our budget app created. Now let's take a look at what our budget app looks like. So if you go up here to the app launcher, you can just type in budget app and click on it, and it should open in the regular UI. So you can see here, I've got all of my custom object tabs. If a user wants to, they can edit and move the various custom object tabs around. I'm just going to leave it as I did it because I know I want it that way. So let's go ahead and see how this app is going to work. For budgets, you'll only have a single budget record, and this will be called main budget. And the total available will be whatever you make. So without disclosing what I make, I'm just going to make up a value for what I earn every month, and that's 5,000. And the reason I'm making this the main budget is later on within our automation, we're going to be creating our category months and our budget month records automatically, and we're going to want to reference the budget name for each of those automation rules that you have. All right, so now that I have a main budget, if I can go straight into my related list, I can start creating some categories. And I'm just going to create a couple categories here. I create utilities. Say that's maybe 500. Create a new one, call it mortgage. And for that, put 1500. I'll say, oops, spelled groceries wrong. And for groceries, I'm going to use $1,000 for that. So now that I have a few categories created, I'm going to go ahead and create some category months and budget months. So I'll go to my budget months tab, and I'll create a budget month for this month. So we're just going to call this budget for 10/22, since that's the current month and year. And the total monthly budget is going to be exactly what my main budget is, so it'll be $5,000. And the first day of month is going to be October 1st. And remember, we're going to be creating these automatically using some automation in the next video. So this is not how you're going to be creating all of your budget month records. Just keep in mind we're only doing this to show you how the app will look. So now that I have my budget month, I'm going to create my category months, and I'll create that for each of the 3 categories that I had created earlier. So this one's going to be called groceries, and then it'll be for 10/22. Budget amount will be that same amount. Again, like I said, this is going to be created automatically, so keep that in mind. We're going to relate it to that groceries via that category lookup, and it's going to automatically be related to that budget month, which is part of that master detail relationship. I'll click Save and New so I can make my mortgage, which is that 1500, relate it to that mortgage category, and then Save and New. And what was the other one we created? Utilities. And that budgeted amount is going to be 500, like we had it. And so if we're just looking at one of these category months, you can see I have the budgeted amount, I have my spent amount equaling 0 because I haven't created any expense records. My budget remaining is then 500, so I know how much I will be able to spend as I go. So now, underneath this particular category month, I'm going to put some expenses. And also keep in mind we're going to create automation for this using a screen flow. So this isn't going to be the normal way you'll create your expenses. So this goes under my utilities category. Let's say the expense date was the 3rd. The amount was 200, and that was my electric bill. I'll go ahead and hit Save and New so I can create another one. And this one came out on the 7th. And that was $100, and it was gas bill. And so now you can see, if we go over to our utilities category month, we can see we've already spent $300 and we have $200 of our budget remaining. So that concludes what we're going to be doing in this video. In the next video, we're going to build the automation that creates our budget months, our category months, our known expenses, and also our add expense screen flow. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you're following along and creating your custom budget app with us. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.